Hello there, welcome back to the Maratha Confederacy Abridged, where last time we conquered Italy, taking out Venice, the Italian states and Naples. We also finished off Spain, destroying their empire abroad. But then we faced a major invasion from Russia when they landed 3 or so stacks in Central Europe. We quickly raised a new army and we've just got done hacking our way through one of those landed stacks. Got a few more to go. We're in the turn after the end of the last part. And the enemy basically didn't do anything, so here we are with another half a stack recruited. I mentioned last time, we are spitting out troops all over the place. So if we go one more turn, then we'll have 2 full new armies recruited at the front line. As for what I'm doing, I'm mainly just waiting on that front because I want all of my reinforcements from Italy to arrive, and they're just about arriving. We can now attack Breslau, which was a Russian territory at the start of the war. We can rush in with all of our stacks. I'm trying here to trigger a battle against these guys who are just out of movement range of the army. With a bit of fiddling about, someone can go ahead and touch them to make the battle happen. And handily enough, all 3 of our armies can participate, so that's going to be an auto-resolve. Looks like this is a remnant of the all-cav army we saw the Russians using earlier. Anyway, it's too weak for me to bother killing them. So we auto-resolve. The result's not that good as usual, but it's good enough. We're rich enough that losing a few hundred men doesn't matter because I'll just buy them back instantly. And that's that. And after that I can also auto-resolve the settlement itself because it doesn't have forts and the garrison wasn't that good. Good result. Now we're in. With this done, we're going to be setting up to close the trap on the Russians really. All of these armies can now move north and join the newly recruited armies, easily giving us parity with the enemy and perhaps even an advantage. Certainly if a few more turns pass we'll have an advantage because we're still spamming troops. The army that defeated the Russians last time goes on to defeat that same army again just to finish them off, and then I'm going to dedicate this force to going towards West Prussia. By the time they get there, hopefully some of their troops will be alive again and that will be fine. Aside from that, we're just waiting in a defensive position because we don't want to trigger any battles that we don't need to right now, since in like 1 or 2 turns we'll probably be fine. By the way, I checked out the prestige menu for the first time. I figured I would be the most prestigious faction, but no, it's actually Russia, so they are our rivals. They are by far the most famous faction in the world, so we need to do some more stuff to one-up these guys. In the Russian turn, their troops that were at West Prussia move over towards Berlin, so that's handy. Then we have the chance to battle them all right here. We probably could win that battle if we really tried, but I wasn't interested. Since, as I said, we've got more stuff on the way. They look like they might be thinking of attacking Berlin, but then they didn't. So long story short, they didn't do anything. Pretty much everything's back where it was at the start of the turn by the end of it. We swoop in and West Prussia surrenders to us, so now we really are closing the noose on them. We've got them pretty much surrounded. Depends if they want to land more troops. You can see what I'm thinking. I'm already going to spy on Russia because if they've sent all their troops here, we can kind of quickly kill them and then rush over to try and take some territory from Russia themselves. It's a bit of a walk, but I'm sure we can manage it. For now then, we just start closing in and getting ready to attack the enemy. We'll need to do that next turn because we don't quite have the movement to set up anything too interesting this turn. At the same time, I've got some ships together to go and pick up the army I left on Sardinia in the previous part, because I wanted to go and attack Corsica as well. This was easier than I thought actually. I thought you would lose your turn by moving into the ships without using a port. That seems to be the case in most Total War games, but not this one. We're able to essentially attack Corsica in the same turn we left Sardinia. So we're faced with this battle. It's a balanced engagement, but the enemy army is packed with trash bowmen and trash pitchfork guys, so that shouldn't be too much to handle. First things first, we shoot at their elephant general a few times, and we get the kill. He was kind of in a line, so one shot killed most of the unit at the same time in the end. And that's great timing because their army had just walked up to mine, so their general falling to help us out with their trash tier morale. Basically, they start routing as soon as we fire at them. Strangely, I wasn't able to just sort of sweep them away with my cav like I thought. I figured I'll just run into them, they'll rout and that'll be that. These units I think are a tiny bit deceptive, because while they have the unit cards and models of pure trash, they're actually like 1 morale higher because they are a regular unit. So they don't rout instantly, even with the general being dead, which I thought was a bit surprising. But they do rout Eventually we just have to grind them down. These bowmen here were a particular surprise, figured they'd just die instantly. It's always annoying when the enemy don't just roll over and die as your cav charges, they need to just accept their fate really. In the middle they had their bowmen line battling with my infantry, this being one of the armies that actually has an infantry component so we can do some line battling. That works pretty well because as mentioned they just rout under small arms fire and that's easy enough. Then I charged out the swordsmen behind the lines to chase stuff away. A lot of the units were routed rather than shattered, so we did need to kill them some more to finish this thing off. And in the end they had one interesting unit in the town in the middle of the map, a unit of garrison musketeers or something that looked like my bug here infantry. They didn't last very long, suffice to say, and there we go, we have taken out that small army, well that big army really, that insignificant army, and we've moved in and taken the territory, and that's what we really wanted, so our control over the Mediterranean continues to expand, and the Mughal Empire have been kicked out of Europe, for now at least. We need to get on and do something about Russia up near Berlin, and here's the first battle. We're just taking out some scraps of an army here so we can auto-resolve that one, and that's fine. We're spamming a pretty good army against them actually there with loads of Barkir Lancers, and the Polygar decent sword cav as well. What I wanted to do after that was have two armies attack the enemy's one over here. This failed. I figured my army there would be close enough. The reinforcement ranges are a bit inconsistent in the game, and there's the issue that you can't move in very close to the enemy because they might intercept you and then stop you bringing over the second army. So we don't have the level of finesse we need to actually attack with both armies at the same time, unfortunately, especially because you can't retreat and go back into a fight in this game. So we're just fighting this generic one-on-one battle. Early cav action as always. A unit comes over and hits the edge of my right flank after I just about noticed them and charge at them there. That's fine because we can just swarm them with all this stuff since we've got a bit of time to spare. They also came at us with some horse archers, just charged out towards them to grab a melee with them. A few cavalrymen came towards my central position with two squares in front of the guns, supported by the elephants, and that was enough to shoot them away, so that worked out. A final wave of cav goes after our left flank, and again we just sort of receive them and then we can swarm them with a few units and try to take them down. I had something else in mind though on this left flank. What I really wanted to do was get some units past their infantry. I've got one unit that charges into the front of the infantry. This barely does anything because the charge was slightly awkwardly directed. Also the upgraded line infantry certainly don't die to a single charge to the front from our low quality lancers, and the rest of our men, as we saw there, ran past them off into the distance, and we'll come back to them of course. Meanwhile on the other flank we've taken out the enemy's cav and their infantry is starting to arrive, so it's time to see kind of what happens if I just throw the death ball at them. Just a bit of lazy clicking, and the answer is not very much. As I said, we're fighting some decent line infantry here. They are going to have the bayonet upgrades, which will make them better against cav. They also all have access to square. Only some units do it. For example, this unit of Cossacks doesn't, which is handy, since Cossacks are a low defense, high attack kind of unit. Even at the high end, they are going to be vulnerable to being charged because they'll take a big morale shock from the losses. Unlike these line infantry units that don't take many losses from charge bonuses being applied against them, so we have to withdraw and cancel that attack down that side of the battlefield. Here's what I'm really going for though. Those units that I sent to the other side of the map are hunting down the enemy general. He's trying to escape, and we'll just keep going because this will be much easier, probably, if we can grab that kill. Their infantry have now advanced up to my final position near the red line, so I can't keep not engaging them at this point. Gonna have to just fight them, so we need that general to die as soon as possible. My anti-general pursuing force is taking casualties because they had this unit at the back that I don't think I even noticed while playing, sitting in a wall that was sniping at my group as we ran across the face of it. But we do eventually grab that general kill, so now we need to see whether this will allow us to get rid of some of these line infantry with our cav. I've already done this engagement right here. And unfortunately it's not quite that easy. I figured they would just rout after taking losses and having the general just be killed. But no, they are steadily forming a square, so we are going to cancel that fight and get out of there. Not quite enough. Here was another chance to try and do it. I've got another cavalry ball charging into an awkwardly formed up enemy unit. That awkward formation seemed primed to cancel the charge and not allow me to get a bunch of kills. It sort of works, but because we technically attacked them from behind, we get an extra morale shock. They're down to wavering, and then they get finished off when their allies shoot at them, giving them an extra morale shock. All good stuff. Thanks for that. And over here, the enemy are already on low morale because they're engaged in a gun and artillery battle with my stuff in my central position, and there a charge can easily finish them off. Looks like the same happened to another unit, and we're going to charge right through them into the next unit. This time we won't have them debuffed by the small arms fire or artillery fire, so that's going to be more difficult. Similar situation over here back on our right flank, where I'm trying to just grind through the enemy, feeling like maybe they'll rout after taking a few casualties at this stage, but that is not the case. Their morale is still higher than I want it to be. I'm guessing that's something to do with these guys being a major faction. I can't quite remember, but I think major factions' generic line infantry units are better than the line infantry units of minor factions, despite appearing to be the same. Anyway, here's a nice jump charge where we went over a wall and flattened an enemy unit quite well, but I do need to be careful charging around randomly because there was actually a point square in the middle of nowhere out here. I hit them with some artillery blasts, and their square formation makes them nice and vulnerable to that. They take a bunch of casualties and start getting out of there. Could have been nasty because I'm usually playing from a zoomed out perspective. I likely would have just clicked on the flag thinking it was more line infantry and taken some casualties charging into those pikes. But nothing like that happens. You hit the back of this line infantry unit, they rout just as we hit them from the front as well, and really this battle is getting to the clear up stage. Just need to maraud around with our death ball, getting everything to run off the field. We are going to want to chase them down and grab as many kills as we can. Some stuff's already escaped at this stage, so we can't completely kill their army. But here is the result. We lost over a quarter of our stuff, but that's not so bad. Those cav fights, even when they do go badly, as long as I pay enough attention and withdraw before we get annihilated, and certainly before we rout, then it ends up being okay. So we're still in good-ish condition. The enemy army's still alive, so we'll have to fight them again at some point. I hoped I could use my second army to do that right now, but seems we can't quite make it even dropping the gun, so we'll just have to leave that there. Now it's time for a sneaky plot. We're going to do something similar to what Russia was doing to us. We're going to make use of some sea approaches to their territory. So here I am assembling our official good navy. I've got a bunch of ships, some 3rd, 4th and 5th rates here. A navy that can contend with what the other naval powers probably have. And we're going to use this fleet to transport the army from Corsica. They are currently in our official, not very good fleet of trash ships. I wanted to move the army into the good fleet. You're not allowed to do that, but you can transfer the good fleet into the bad fleet, which has roughly the same effect. So we have a hefty escort for our transported army that's unlikely to get taken down. And I'm going to take them, as you can see, over towards the Crimea to open up a new front against Russia. Back in Central Europe, we need to finish off this stack that's sitting around right here. I figured what I'd do is just absolutely swarm them with trash. I've got 3 armies of pure trash, and I thought altogether maybe they can just auto-resolve that away for us and we don't have to bother pursuing the enemy. Well, we do win the auto-resolve with enormous casualties. The enemy don't take many casualties, they just retreat. So that actually made it worse because now they're just further away. Now I can't close in with an actual army and kill them this turn. Annoying, but it was worth a go. Now one of the trash armies is going to start moving off to the east. I'm already planning to make my big attack on Russia, since we probably have enough stuff around Berlin to finish off what's left of their armies, just their 1.5 stacks of already damaged stuff. At the start of the next turn, we see a Mughal Empire naval invasion kind of setting up at Scotland. They're wasting time blockading a port rather than landing their troops. So that gives me plenty of warning. I don't have many good recruitment buildings, but I'm going to recruit what I can and try to very quickly have an army somewhere in the area. Meanwhile, it's winter. That means it's go time on Russia. I've got a couple of stacks moving out. You can see one of my targets is going to be Riga here, one of the closest Russian-controlled areas for us to go for. Just need to hope that Poland don't betray us. That would be extremely inconvenient at this stage. My other main target is going to be Kiev down there. That will link up nicely with my idea of attacking Crimea because those two regions are next to each other, and Kiev is also next to Moscow, which would be a nice place to go for. So here I am at the Crimea. The port here was undefended, so we can just land straight into it nice and comfortably. Move on over. There are no troops inside, just the spawned garrison that surrenders, and that's that. We've instantly moved on in. It's not the best region, but taking it denies Russia that port, and they were trading for 5,000 a turn through it, so we might have screwed them over economically. Plus, strategically, we now have an army in an awkward position for them. We can move in and attack either Kiev or go to the east, where there are some other minor Russian territories. We almost have enough public order to do that right away. I could leave a few units behind and just march off if I turned the taxes off. But I decided to wait for now, because if we move out in a couple of turns instead, we'll also have our other attacks coming in from the west and we can coordinate something a bit better. Now, back near Berlin, we're going to finish off the survivors of the battle from earlier by just spamming them with a bunch of stuff. The auto-resolve's not very good actually, but it's good enough. We don't want to go back and do that manually. With that done, we need to take out the bigger remnant. Barely a remnant at all. Technically, this is an army that's been defeated, but with most of its troops still alive. So I'm going at them with 3 stacks. I figured at least 2 of them would be participating in this battle, but no, we get just the 1. Still, it's a fight we can win. They have no general, and all their units are a bit weaker than normal thanks to the sacrifice of our thousands of trash earlier. In come the cav then. We've only got the 1 unit in front of our guns this time, and it's going to have to be enough because they are charging it with a couple of units of cav. Seeing that, I didn't actually trust that unit to hold them off, so I started folding in my cav from the flanks to come and help out in the centre there. The rest of the cav are moving out, looking for a chance to outflank stuff. Didn't move in time to avoid just taking this charge on the square. In theory, this is fine. Our men should have shot them or something, but I guess they didn't. And yes, we lose a few men and the enemy are immediately inside the square. These other units, though, are kept out of the fight by us just ploughing into them with our own cav. Now we can start moving in our cav to also go into the square and try to help out. Looks like the enemy are trying to get back out of the square, which will also help us out. Meanwhile, just need to clear up all of that stuff before all of these line infantry come into the fight, because that will complicate matters. And with these grinding fights, we have enough of our sword cav to win, and we do win just about in time. I form a line very quickly just as the enemy's main body of infantry arrives, then I start ploughing into it. This will be another battle where ploughing is the main tactic, but it doesn't always work, or ever work really. It rarely works, I should say, because here we are absolutely slamming various units with various units of our own cav. But they're not just running away like I want them to. Got one down to wavering for a bit there. They're instead surviving and forming squares, which is nasty, and we are going to be taking significant casualties on our cavalry for doing this. Looks like an isolated unit there was taken down. It was a nice downhill charge into a unit. That's going to do a decent amount of damage, and that's another case where we are able to get through that unit, but then we end up stuck on the unit behind it. I'm withdrawing from that main charge that I went for right there because it just didn't work out. Went back in for a second charge, but now they have these 2 squares next to each other, and they prove to be quite impenetrable, so I fell back again, taking more casualties all the while. This is starting to seem like how squares are reported to have worked in real life. The cav just can't really deal with them. However, our army's pretty much just cav, so we're going to have to deal with it and just keep attacking them. Seems like a good idea. This time I got the elephants involved as well to see if that would change things up. But this third attack on the squares doesn't do all that much either. The squares maintain their formation and we lose a bunch more of our own cav. Elsewhere, I'm trying to make more fights not against squares, just against static infantry units, and that's not working out all that well. I'm sending 1 unit towards the back to get up to some antics. Aside from that, I disengaged most of our stuff and decided to really focus down single units. Like right here, we've got like 6 or 7 units going after 1 infantry unit from multiple sides. That is enough to take them out. Here's me trying to disengage and failing with a few units. The enemy were pursuing as I was moving away, and my tired cav seemed to be failing to escape. Need to do some more micro and spam the orders to try and get them out there. So yes, we've taken down 1 unit there. Then I got my death blob and thought I'll charge it through this small looking nearby enemy unit. but the reason it was small was because it's an elite unit, so they hold on and stop our cav charge. At the back I was taking out their artillery and also fighting their general with this cav unit, their captain I should say. However, with just one low quality lancer unit that wasn't enough, and I think my lancer unit was either defeated or I pulled them out of there. Meanwhile, back near the edge of the map, we're just kind of fighting the stuff that was pursuing my withdrawing cav, and at this stage we're starting to win. We've lost most of the cav, but we have also killed the enemy in the meantime. So yes, now the area is just covered in bodies. A big grind. We managed to win just about somehow. And now we're going to not learn our lesson and just keep charging into the front of other units. At this stage our stamina is going to be low, which makes charges less effective by an unspecified amount. At least it probably does. It does in the other Total War games. So that's going to make things even worse for us, and again the enemy don't rout when I death blob them. But by this stage we have routed and killed enough enemies that just doing it again seemed to do the job. Looks like they turned round or something there. We never actually took down the enemy commander, and I'm sure that was one of the reasons that battle didn't go all that well. I didn't prioritize it like I did in the previous fight. I figured I didn't really need to. But in these results, if you take away the fact that many of our numbers were our one unit of infantry, we lost perhaps more than half of our combat effective part of the army in that battle. It was a bit nasty. Not that that necessarily matters, because if we're rich enough, they'll just come back, and because this is pretty much the end of the fight in this area, we'll obviously be able to get all those troops back before this army engages again. So I suppose it doesn't really matter. Probably should have just auto-resolved it really and taken extreme casualties or something. We go on and finish off the enemy army, and that's that. The Russian invasion of the Brandenburg region is finally over, and with that we of course want to turn the tables and invade Russia ourselves as soon as possible, which obviously we've already started. So that's going to be the focus of the next part.